Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast reporting live from the blocks. I'm Chris Daly, and today I have the pleasure of chatting once again with Mr. Fish Lee. Fish, how's it going, man?
It is going pretty good. It has been a heck of a year so far, but I'm doing good and I'm glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited. And yeah, I can't believe we finally got out of January. It was like the longest year of my life.
God. I still feel like I'm dragging half of January behind me.
Yeah.
January was a year,
Yes,
and
sir.
so we'll see how it goes.
Yes, sir. And yeah, we're not far enough into February yet to really feel like we shed January quite yet. So totally understand. Totally
Yeah.
understand. All right, man. So, like I mentioned before we started recording, you were on episode 2 of the show, and now you're on episode 81. So it's very cool to have you back. You've now officially joined the Two Timers Club. It's very, very exciting. It's a very prestigious club that not very many people have gotten to be a part of. So, I'd like to welcome
It's
you to that Two Timer Club.
it is a fine rarefied air up in this club. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a member of it. I'm reminiscent of the SNL Five Timers Club. I'm hoping to get that cool smoking jacket at some point, man. That's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, man, we'll get it done for sure. All right. So, since you're an old timer of the show, you're an old hat. We usually like to start things off with an icebreaker question. So, today's question, which task or chore that you do around the house is your favorite?
Honestly, the dishes, and
Yeah?
I hate the dishes. They're gross
Okay.
and they're disgusting.
Okay.
But for my OCD brain, it's
Yeah.
like systematic. I do this, I do this, I do this, and then it's done. And then I wipe the counters and I can look and it's finished. Where, like with the laundry, you can clean out the hamper, get it all in the washer, get it all in the dryer, and the hamper's half full again.
Yep.
And like it never stops. It just keeps coming.
Yep.
I could sweep the floor 100 times. We have three dogs and a cat. The floor is always filthy with dog hair and dirt they're tracking in. It's
Yep.
tile and concrete everywhere in the house. So there's no place for it to like settle into the carpet and disappear. The dishes, I can be done. They can be
Yeah.
done. I can see them from across the house. They're done. I like the dishes for that reason.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm with you on the laundry because I'm the only guy in a house full of ladies, and it seems like no matter how quick and how fast I do the laundry, there's always more laundry because I'll do
Oh,
like 3 or 4 loads in a day, and then my teenager comes and just drops a pile like, "Oh, since you're doing laundry anyway," I'm like,
oh
"Okay,
yeah. And
well,
I've lived in houses with a lot of ladies, and sometimes there's a lot of costume changes throughout the day
oh
and
yeah,
stuff like that. My wife changes clothes so many times throughout the day,
oh
and
yeah."
I'm like, can't you just wear the same thing all day like I do? And she's like, I don't work from home. I can't work in my PJs like you do. Well, you should have got a better job. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I give my wife shit about that too because she'll change from her daytime pants to her nighttime pants, and it's kind of as a joke we have at the house. And I'm like, why can't you just have day pant? Like, why can't you just have pants the whole day? And she's like, it's just a thing you just don't understand because you're a guy. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So yeah, and like no matter so with the laundry, I gather up the laundry, I bring it downstairs. Since I work downstairs, I just do the laundry. So I'll wash it, dry it, I'll hang up the wet stuff that needs to not be dried, and then when it's all done, I sort it and I take it up to them, and then they're like, I don't want to do this part. And I was like, I did
Oh yeah.
all of the other stuff, like literally every other part. You can do this one thing. They're just like, I don't want to. And I'm like, whatever, man.
Oh yeah. I can clean the entire kitchen. I could, sweep them up the floors. I could do all the dishes. But if I like ask our son to like put the dishes up, oh, why do I have to do everything? Like, dude, you ain't done squat. You took out the
Yeah.
trash like 3 days ago. Come on, man. You can do this
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think for me, my favorite task, there's been a couple lately. One of them is, I mentioned I live with a bunch of women. So there's lots of jewelry that needs to be untangled that's completely knotted up. And they'll tell me that I'm a wizard at undoing it. I don't know why, but like my OCD brain kind of gets in there Like they just want to like cut it and like fix the knots that way. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's like it's a
No, no, no,
whole,
no.
it's a
You can
process. You gotta
undo
just
it. It's a puzzle. You just
exactly like
look at the
they
way it went in and take it back out. Like
exactly. They
I'm
don't.
with you on that. I enjoy like, they always send the grandkids with the knotted shoe laces to me
Yeah,
because I'll sit there and pick at it and get it apart. And
yeah, yeah. And
absolutely.
they don't understand. I'm like, it's like you said, it's a puzzle. Like they don't understand. Like you look and see where it goes. You kind of just slowly, kind of just gently pull it apart, and then eventually it's there. It's like it's not magic. You just have to have patience. I mean, that's why I have a beard as long as I do, and I'm sure that's the same for you. You're
Yeah.
really good at being patient.
Yeah, it's funny because on the absolute opposite side of knots and and tangled messes, I excel at Christmas presents to the point that like
Yeah,
my wife's just like, here, you wrap them, and I'll sit at the table all day long wrapping presents. And because I'm creative and I'm OCD and I like puzzles and figuring things out.
yeah,
I've upped my game year after year after year, and they get more complicated and cleaner and more seamless. And this year, she sent me a TikTok video about using glue sticks to wrap Christmas presents.
hmm.
I didn't think it would work. Oh, it works like a freaking charm.
Really?
I had seamless presents.
Oh
Everything was like
man,
folded. All the seams were like hidden in the corners of the boxes and stuff. And it looked beautiful. It was a pain in the butt to undo because I used a little bit too much glue. So like I wasn't sure along the edge would hold it. So I
yeah,
like really glued down that last piece as I put it down, and you
sure.
had to pull it off its strips. I figured out a way to do it differently next time, but I've even gone so far as to like build boxes just so I could have the fun of wrapping like a pyramid shaped box with no seams and a bow on top and
Nice,
just have nothing but silver paper everywhere. Uh
nice.
yeah, I enjoy that part.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat there because my wife, we've been together. It'll be 20 years we've been married this year. And she,
Congrats.
thank you. From the beginning, she said, I will not wrap presents, period. I will not. So if you want them to be wrapped, you're doing it. And, before we got together, I had never wrapped a present ever. And,
Oh,
I usually just had my mom do it. And, just because I mean, we got together when I think I was 19 and she had just turned 18. And so I just kind of just slowly year after year, like you, I just kind of progressively have been getting better. Granted, I'm still not great, but I'm definitely much better than I used to be because my wife said if it was up to me, I would just bag everything. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I think we need
that's
to,
what my wife does.
it needs to, I mean, I get it, for like
Oh,
birthdays and
it's
stuff like
easy.
that. Just bagging stuff for birthdays is
Hmm.
fine. And, this year there were a few Christmas presents that got bagged just because they were weirdly shaped or they were too big and I didn't have a box big enough. But
Hmm.
yeah, I use a little bit too much tape. I'll admit to that. But yeah, I'm the wrapper of presents. And what I do is my method is I'll take like, we'll have one kid's stuff. Well, spoiler for my kid, don't listen to this part of the podcast, but one kid I'll have all their stuff in a box, another kid I'll have all their stuff in a box so it's separate. And then what I'll do is every night I'll wrap like 3 or 4 presents and then put them back in the box. So by the time I'm done over like a week, I'll have all the presents wrapped and I'll have a box full of wrapped presents for each kid. After a couple of weeks, everything will be wrapped, and then we'll just, bring the box up and empty out the box at Christmas time, on Christmas Eve or whatever. So
An
it's kind of
idea
weird, but it works.
that I did the whole time my kids were growing up, my older kids, and they still complain if we don't do it this way now. Um, Even though they're grown and like my oldest has kids of his own and all this stuff, they still
Yeah.
complain if we don't do this anymore. Uh, but to keep them from like sneaking in and opening the presents ahead of time because like, oh, these are mine, or putting them all in piles so they could see like, who got the most or who got the heaviest or whatever.
Yeah.
And I started wrapping each kid's presents in a certain color paper and not putting any tags on it. So like all of the polka dot paper went to Bear and all of the blue paper went to Marcus and all the red paper went to Jay. And they didn't know that. So the presents are all mixed around and like my ex-wife's would be in there and mine would be in there and the in-laws would be in there and everything would be by a color for that person. So the kids could never figure out the code growing up. And then on, Christmas morning, we didn't have like lettered stockings for them or anything. So I would make a riddle out of the paper. Like I'd fold each paper up, make a little card, and I'd make a riddle for like who each person was and put it in the stocking. And then they'd read the riddle, figure out whose it was, and then that was their stocking, that was their paper color, and then they go get their presents from under the tree. And like they were really simple riddles. It's like,
Yeah.
this kid, got an A and, won the big game and, is the tallest of the three named Lee. Like it was really simple, like, Dr. Seuss rhymes. But
Yeah.
they had such a kick figuring it out. It's still a thing to this day. Like, and now there's like 18 of us at
Oh
Christmas
man.
morning to have to try
Huh.
and figure this all out for. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I can thoroughly recommend
That's
that
a cool idea. I've
tradition.
thought about that, and I've seen, people on TikTok, well, they'll do kind of the same thing, but then on Christmas morning, the kid will find just like a scrap of paper in their
Yeah,
stocking that matches the one. So it's kind of still the same idea.
that's that's what we do. Like I put the riddle on a little card I made out of that paper.
That's
So,
cool.
it's like, oh, this is the striped paper. That means I get the striped presents,
That's
and
awesome. That's a
and
really cool
grandma gets
idea.
the pink ones, and whatever.
Nice. Um, so I think really getting back to what we were talking about before, I think my favorite chore is decluttering. And it's been something I've gotten a lot more into since I've been older because I'm 40 now. And that's kind of I just having having my parents pass away and having to go through all of their stuff because I didn't go through much of my mom's, but I definitely went through my dad's stuff because it was just my dad. My mom was remarried, so her husband kind of went through that stuff. But with my dad, it was just him, and so we had to get all the kids together and go through all of his stuff. And I think we threw out easily a couple of dumpsters full of stuff just because he kept hard copies of like newspapers over the years and magazines for whatever reason. But so I've kind of been going through, I don't want my kids to have to worry about that. I'm not anticipating passing away anytime soon, but
You never know, though. I mean,
you never
it's
know.
unfortunate, but you never know.
Yeah.
The more prepared you are, the better.
And I have all this stuff just sitting around. I'm like, this stuff's doing nothing for me. Why do I have it here? Like, I just, a couple years ago over Christmas break, I just got rid of like a bunch of stuff that I just like music CDs. I don't listen anymore, DVDs. I don't watch anymore. I just got rid of so much stuff. And I'll go through like just recently I went through our coat closet and we took out all the coats that no one wore anymore because it didn't make sense to have them and we'll give them to people who could use them. And we had this big basket full of scarves and gloves that really there's like 30 pairs of gloves and like only two people wear gloves in my house and there's no reason to have that many extra. So I've been decluttering that. It's hard, because I live with a bunch of women who don't like to get rid of things, so it's very
Oh man.
difficult to do. But at least for my stuff that I can control, I've been kind of going through and just getting rid of stuff. And, if something's broken or it's old, I'll replace it as I'm going through. But I'll clean out the pantry, cleaned out the silverware drawer, I've cleaned out the coat closet. But once it's done, it's kind of like with you with the dishes where you look at it, you're like, all right, this is done. My OCD brain can finally rest that I don't have to dig through 30 coats to get the one coat I want to wear today. And, I haven't worn this coat in 5 years. Why do I still have it here? So it's just
Oh
something as
man.
I've gotten older, it's something I really enjoyed doing. It's weird, but
Yeah, like I had a jacket, like a insulated, one of those insulated plaid shirt kind of jackets
yeah,
that was like ripped halfway up the side that was in my closet for 10 years that I was
yeah,
holding on to just in case I needed to go outside in the cold and paint or something and I wanted something that could get nasty. Hadn't worn it outside to paint in the cold in 10 years, but I still had it in the closet. And I, with so many things, I'm to the point now that once I heard the like $20, 10 minutes rule, like if you can replace it for less than $20 in 10 minutes, then get rid of it. You can get another one.
yeah,
That changed my life because like I come from a family with like hoarding tendencies. My wife comes from a very generous, loving family
yeah,
with, the love language of giving gifts that have too much stuff laying around all the time.
Oh yeah.
We both have real bad ADHD, so it's real easy for everything to get covered with doom piles and stuff to just pile
Oh
up
yeah.
and order things and forgot that she ordered them and then order another one, and then now we got two of these things that we didn't really need in the first place. Like it happens.
Yeah.
Uh, I've gotten really good about just getting rid of things. But then there's that other part of me that's an artist that's like, oh, but this thing is important. This thing can be turned into something. This thing would make a really cool reactor on the side of some terrain for my role-playing game that I
Yep.
haven't built terrain for in like 8 years. But like it would be really good for that purpose. And so I need to collect it and put it in the box. And of craft stuff that I haven't touched in years. Uh, it's that part's bad, or like, oh, this cool hose would be really cool prop in a movie or something. That I don't have time to do that stuff. And my kids are grown; they have kids of their own. They don't
Yeah.
have time to sit around, making movies in the backyard anymore. But like as an artist, I still want to collect those things, and I'm having to be really hard on myself now and be like, unless it's something that I seriously think I can use for something realistic, I'm not letting myself bring it home no matter how cool it is. Like
Yeah.
I brought home a couple of things recently that I was like, okay, now that actually like I could really use that. And speaking of building terrain, I've been thinking about getting back into doing some of that for my comic books to build like some of the bases or buildings or weapons or things that I use repeatedly in a comic book so I can have an actual like 3D reference to look at for like, what this evil scientist base looks like or whatever.
Yeah.
And making some little models of some of the buildings and things so that I can see like, oh, this is what the base looks from like this angle and stuff rather than necessarily having to pay like a 3D artist to do that so I can move it around in
Sure.
3D and figure out what does it look like from that angle.
Yeah.
But I like having references around. I got all the Matchbox cars that I used to use for my role-playing game. I now use as references for cars that go into my books. So I
Nice.
can be like, what does that armored car look like from underneath? And, and get everything laid out right.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've kind of adopted the whole, if I haven't touched it in like 6 to 12 months, I think I don't know why I have this still. And so I have now the problem is, like you said with Doom piles, I have quite a few of those now because I have a bunch of piles of stuff I want to get rid of, but I just haven't taken it out of my house yet, which has been the bad part. Or
And
I'll
there's
have,
there, there's steps for me. There's like,
yeah.
okay, this is the stuff I'm going to throw away. This is the stuff I'm going to hold on to for another 6 months.
Yep.
And, see, this is the stuff that I'm probably going to throw away, but I'm going to put it in this pile for a while first. And like, yeah, there's many
Yeah.
layers.
And I have, I just recently found out there's a place near me that is good for electronic recycling. So if you have a bunch of old electronics, take them
Oh
and just
yeah.
dump them off. So I started a box. So like all these old electronic stuff I just throw in there because I've been an IT guy since 2009. So I do IT at work. I also do IT after work. Not as much as I used to, but I have a bunch of computer parts all over from other computers I've worked on for people and or even my own computers. And so I've just been throwing them all in this box. And now I'm like, all right, the box is full. You need to box it up and get it out of here. And now it just keeps getting more full and more full and more full. But
Oh
eventually it's
man.
it's gonna get out of here. But like you said, it's baby steps. And a big thing that I've been trying to incorporate with my kids and my wife about, keeping rid of the doom piles is don't put it down, put it away.
Yep.
So if you get something
That's
out, you don't want to put it down. Just like, no, 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 no. Well, I'll put it down. I'll pick it up later. No, you won't. Because later is going to come and you're going to forget because nobody in my house can pay attention to something for longer than 10 minutes. So I'm like, if you have it now, just go put it away right now. And then that way you don't have to worry about it later because you're thinking about it right now. Or my wife will be like,
mhm.
I need to make this appointment. I'll write it down. I'm like, no, 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 no. Do it right now. Because if you don't do
Make
it
that
right now,
appointment, or
you're
you're
not
still going to be saying I need to
going
make
to
it three
forget.
days from now.
Or I need
Yeah.
to send this email. Send it right now while you're thinking about it. What? Nope. Send it right now because you'll
Yeah.
forget.
It's like if I got to get up and pack something, into a box to ship, I might as well go ahead and go stick it in the van right now
Yep.
because if I put it down anywhere else, I might forget to go take it in the morning to the post office.
Yep.
But if I can just go ahead and put it in the van, then it's
There.
there. Or like if I'm packing a return for Amazon, just go ahead and stick it in the van. And the next time I'm in town, it's already there. Then, you know what? I forgot to pack that up or whatever. I forgot to put it in the van. It's there already. I'm not perfect about everything, but I'm trying to get better about go ahead and do it now.
Yep.
Because like you say, if I set it down in 10 minutes, that is a permanent part of the geography around me. It has
Yep.
always been there and will always be there. It is just another hill in the terrain. It's not a mouse anymore. It's not a package. It's not a letter from, the IRS. No, it's a permanent little, part on the map. And
Yeah, that's happened to us. We'll like, if you put it on this table next to the door, then you'll know on the way out the door you'll take it with you. And then I can't tell you how many times we've gone out the door and driven off and we have to turn around and come back because it's still sitting next to the door to go out the door. Or
yeah.
even it's really bad. My wife, got a box of my daughter's old shoes that don't fit her anymore and like, all right, I'm gonna put these in the car because if I put them in the car, then that'll t lead me to take them to drop them off at like the DI or Goodwill or whatever. They're still in the back of my car and they've been there for at least a year, if not longer.
Oh yeah, like I'll carry the donation clothes around in the back of the van for
Yep.
maybe a month. But like, we go to Sonic a lot and there's a drop-off box at Sonic. So like if I'm down on that end of the thing, I'm more likely to remember that, oh, that thing I keep seeing in the rear view mirror, I need to go over there and stick that in there.
Yeah, the bad part is I'll take my daughter to guitar lessons, which is right next to where a drop off is. And I'll
Mhm.
just sit in the parking lot, wait for her to get done with guitar. And I'm like, why didn't I just take it over there? It's right there. Right there. I could walk there. Matter of fact, several times I didn't want to wait in the car, so I'll turn it off and walk over and just kind of wander around and see what they've got. And I'll still forget. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
What do you do?
Yeah, I'm
All right,
telling you.
man. So, a cool thing I noticed that I wanted to talk about is something you've started doing is random character generators. Tell
Hmm.
me about how that came around.
I I've always liked randomly making up characters. Like I love rolling up characters for role-playing games, and I've been running the same homebrew art superhero RPG game for like geez, over 30 years.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I started when I was like maybe 15 or so running this game because
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody else that would run a game that I could play in. So I started running one and taught all my little hoodlum friends how to play. And,
Okay.
and all of a sudden, all these tough gangster wannabes are in my backyard rolling dice and pretending to be giant cybernetic snake men and, all kinds of stuff. And we're, killing monsters with laser blasts. And it was just, oh man, it was so much fun.
That's
I
cool.
taught all these thugs how to play role-playing games, and almost all of them loved it. And so I've been running this consistently. Like my kids grew up learning to play role-playing games. They learned to read on their character sheets. They learned to do math on dice. Like we've always done this. And I'm perfectly happy. Like if you want to come in the game and you have an idea for a character you want to do, like we can work up that skill set and powers that you want. Like fine. But I enjoy randomly rolling up a character. I enjoy the like getting random crap that just doesn't seem like it's going to be very cool and then try to figure out how to make that cool. It's one of the things I really like about My Hero Academia because they take
Yeah.
one really weird thing, like being able to shoot tape out of your elbows, and
Yep.
turn it into a really awesome superhero. And I
True.
freaking love that. And like my kids got really good at I'll never forget my middle son. He really wanted like a speedster Spider-Man, and he rolled up ice powers, and that was like all he got was a couple of different ice powers. And he really still wanted to be a speedster Spider-Man. He didn't want to be Iceman. And he's like, well, can I try and figure out a way to run fast? I was like, well, roll the dice. Let's see what you come up with. And he kept trying different ideas, and then he came up with this idea of using his ice powers to like skate across the ground. And he got really, really fast. He rolled a natural 20 the first time he tried figuring this out. And then from there on, it just got easier and he got better. And I was like, hey, if you want to figure out how to use your powers that way, cool. He got really fast, and then he wanted to try sticking to walls, so he managed to learn how to freeze his like hands and feet to the wall and climb up, then break it off and freeze it again. And so he became a speedster that's running around and climbing walls. And it was such a weird use of the power that I never would have imagined that it it spurred my imagination that much more. And my kids have always liked playing this game when they were growing up because, you got an artist as a father of like, what would happen if you mashed up this character and that character, or, what would happen if you mashed up Venom and Spider-Man 2099 and the Hulk. And so I, create this conglomeration of it. And it's just fun for me taking all these random things and sticking it together. So I started working on a random character generator. There's lots of things online that you can go to, and it'll like kick you out a random superpower or something, or
Yeah.
maybe you can set two or three or whatever, or kick out random animals, and maybe I will mix those together into something. But I really wanted something that was going to be more interesting and be more challenging than what I was finding. And a lot of the ones I was finding was basically like, would have the powers of the Avengers in it, and that was it, or something like that. And I wanted something more creative than that. And so I started working on one last Christmas because, we were off for Christmas break. We were on vacation,
Yeah.
and uh or it was the Christmas before. It was 2023 Christmas, and we were in Colorado. I couldn't really like work, but I could still get some work done. So I worked on this spreadsheet of all these powers and stuff, and I just revamped it all, and I found a generator that I could post up on my link tree, and you can go to my link tree and like go to my TikTok page, and the link's right there at the top, and it'll take you to it. Uh, and now I've got this generator that will randomly roll up like how you got created, like you're a military android that was designed with the powers of, XYZ, or you're a failed government experiment, or an evil scientist, experimented on you, or an ancient curse turned you into, or you're, the last survivor of an alien civilization with the powers of, and then it'll roll up like two random powers, and then it'll roll up like a but or an and at the end. You can take it or leave it if you want. And, and maybe it's like a failed government experiment gave you the abilities, of like time manipulation and portal generation, but your powers are tied to a gigantic machine at your base or something like that. Or the mob is hunting you down, or your creators are, trying to kill you, or, whatever. There's all kinds of random like penalties and stuff that you can apply or not. And the thing I like about it is once you randomly roll this up, you can go back on any one of those wheels and re-roll them if you want. You can tick them up once up or down. You can re-roll it randomly if and see what else you get. Like maybe everything sounds really cool, but the but at the end doesn't match up very well with the how you got there. So re-roll it. Or maybe one of the powers doesn't fit well, and so let's re-roll that one. And you can get some really cool stuff. And I enjoy using that as like a warm up to create random drawings and come up with random characters and stuff. And it's a fun thing, and people kind of, react to it. People have been enjoying the TikTok videos and stuff where I've sketched out these characters and stuff. I'm planning on redoing a lot of those videos and explain my thought process, but about like how I designed it and why, and like what I thought was cool about it and why I changed from this sketch to that sketch halfway through in the time lapse and stuff, and just talk through it for the people that care about that kind of stuff.
That's cool, man. Yeah, um there's actually a card game that I have. I don't remember the name of it right now. But it's made by Robert Kirkman's studio.
Oh
Um
yeah.
it's a card game that's kind of like that, where it's like you draw your main card, and then you draw like two sub cards. It's like this is your it's kind of the same thing as like here's your power, but these are your two like your butts. So your two I can't remember. I used to play it on the podcast page for a while, but then they kind of took out the voting, which kind of bummed me out because I would like, all right, vote for whatever one, and then the next week we'll move on and we'll match them up. We would have matchups. So that's really cool that you do that. And man, ice powers, that would be my favorite power if I was gonna do something like that. If I was a real superhero, ice power would be what I'd want. So that's really cool that your son was able to he didn't get what he wanted, but he was able to kind of still get what he wanted, just in a different
Yeah.
way.
Oh
Super
man, the
cool.
creative ways they've come up with to use powers and things to do with it that I never would have thought of.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's just like blunt force like a hammer, and sometimes they get super creative. And and they've done some outlandish stuff that is absolutely going to end up in a copy of Green Zone at some point. But as of yet, we haven't got to the point where I can show some of that stuff. But their game has taken place in this world that Green Zone's set in. So it's built out all kinds of extra lore and characters and stuff for me, and characters that are going to show up, characters that have shown up in the background of other books and stuff that I've done that have stories from Green Zone and Caw and stuff in there. They're like, if you've been in my game, you're like, oh, I absolutely know who that is in the background. And later on, you're going to see this character come up later and be like, oh, that's who that was. And yeah,
That's that's so
I'm
cool.
excited.
I've wanted to get into more role-playing games like that around here. The problem is everybody wants to play and nobody wants to be dungeon master or be the storyteller or whatever. So that's the same advice I've been given is like with you, if you can't find anyone to lead the game, you just got to lead the game yourself. And I've never done that, but I'm kind of slowly trying to figure out how to do that. But
It
yeah, that
really scared me at first because I was like, but I like to play. Like I don't
yeah,
want to not get to play. I didn't realize when I was just a player that the DM gets to play all the other characters. I didn't think about it that way.
yeah,
So like I get to play almost the most of anybody. And
yeah,
like, if one of my characters dies, no big deal. I've got 1,000 other ones to throw at you. Like it's
yeah,
not as heartbreaking. I'm kind of happy if you kill off one of my characters, because like, you want, maybe I don't want you to kill him, but anyway, I'm happy for you if you win and do that. But like, it's a fun thing. I honestly kind of like don't want to go back. Like,
yeah. I
I
get it.
mean, every once in a while it's fun to just play the character and not have to worry about, where all this is going and how are you going to tie it together and stuff. And I quit years and years ago, like back in high school. I quit trying to think out a game from beginning to end. Like the DMs that I learned from would have notebooks with these giant, maps all planned out and all the encounters and all the monsters. And they'd have all this stuff written down about how they were going to read off like what happened and, all this lyrical poetry written about like, oh, the mushrooms start to shriek and these ghosts come and whatever. And then I started playing with these, with these idiot thugs in high school, and they would just go way off the rails, and they didn't care about what I had planned. They would take a hard left turn and go somewhere else, and I had to learn real quick just to fly by the seat of my pants. And I realized for me in particularly, it was a much more freeing way to do the game to just be like, okay, I have a vague idea where we're going. I'm gonna start this bus rolling down the hill and I'm gonna see what y'all do with it from there on. And I have some ideas of things we might hit along the way. We may not. You may take a hard left turn. Like what I expected to be a little espionage game at one point, where they were going to have to, do some spying and not be hammers in a china shop, but they're going to have to be careful and be
Yeah.
delicate. They ended up falling right into the hands of the spies, becoming public enemy number one on their home planet. They ended up having to leave their dimension and find a new place to live because it got so bad and so off the rails where they were. They could not go back to their home world, my
Oh
kids.
wow.
And like it was just supposed to be a little mission, and they ended up doing absolutely everything wrong. And it was freaking hilarious. It was
That's
so much
awesome.
fun. But
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine, running a game for 30 plus years, you've got to kind of let go of I've got this specific endpoint I want to get to because, eventually, they're not going to necessarily, your players aren't necessarily do what you want them to do. They're going
oh
to
yeah.
do kind of whatever. So it's going to end up throwing your plans off. So that's got to be a really exciting way to play the game.
And superheroes are a little bit different because we're used to thinking about superhero stories in
Sure.
like comic book episodic little adventures and not like, this is the long campaign of, the mighty hero known as Kal-El and, fighting from a foreign land. We don't think about it as this overarching thing. We think about it in these little episodes.
Yeah.
And the big problem that I had was, Wayne showed up today, but he didn't show up next week. And, Josh didn't show up this week, but he showed up next week. And how do we explain how this keeps changing? And then I went back home to like my dad's hometown one time and ran into some old friends from like third grade, and they were playing role-playing games, and they had a superhero game going too. And they were doing I stole this idea from them where there's an overarching organization that employs all the superheroes. This was before like Youngblood and stuff. This was years before that happened. And it was such a mind-blowing idea for me that the government would have this organized group of superheroes and they could just send out who they need for this mission. So, if Tony doesn't show up today, that's fine. Tony wasn't required for this mission, and just the people that showed up today were the ones that were required and got assigned and get shipped out to go after Dr. Destructo today or whatever. And and if we have a different team next week, finishing this up, well, maybe Tony got knocked out and maybe now Larry taps in and he got sent as reinforcements from home base. And it made such an easy tool to let people come and go and to explain how we could go on these quick, short little adventures. And it gave them support teams and stuff, and it gave them people working in the lab to figure out new devices for them or new weapons and stuff. So, and they had a hierarchy of bosses and stuff that they could try and schmooze up to or that they could piss off. And, it gave all kinds of cool extra stuff that I could play with and have fun with and, use for them or against them depending on the situation and, other people that could be in danger and, the lady on comms that they talk to all the time might get held hostage all of a sudden and, all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And that little idea led to so much cool role-playing game stuff and just became an easy way to explain the game and how it works. And it makes it super easy. Like we've literally been playing at a comic book shop, had somebody come by and when we were at the comic book shop, I'm using the big giant city map rolled out. I got buildings set up. I've got little, 2D caricatures for everybody on these little stands, and we've got explosions and all these things set up everywhere and all kinds of cool stuff. It draws attention. And, it's like playing Warhammer or something on there. And everybody's looking and had people just walk up and be like, hey, can I play? Like, sure, here's a character sheet, man. This is how it works. And my game is really pared down and really easy to learn. It's you basically just have the stats that you need for your character. Like, like if you're playing, say, a tank, you I don't care what your intelligence and your wisdom is and your charisma. Like, unless you really want to be charismatic, I don't care what your charisma is. You don't care what it is. You know,
Yeah.
you you don't care about this stuff. You care about like how many hit points you have, what's your bonus to hit, what's your bonus to damage hand to hand. Like, I mean, that's what you care about. So those are the stats that we worry about, like what's important for you. If you're playing a hacker, then like your bonus to like rolling for, hacking computers and stuff, that's really important for you. Your physical dexterity probably isn't that important. Your ability to sneak around in the shadows probably isn't that important for you. So we don't worry about all the extra stuff. We just worry about the things you need. Like what's your bonus to hit? How many attacks do you get per round? How many hit points do you have? What bonuses do you need for your character? What are your powers? How do they work? What are their effects? What weapons do you have? What armor do you have on? And you're good to go. It's really easy to figure out. If you've ever played another role-playing game before, this one's real simple. Now, in that, you have to be able to trust me as the game master that, because a whole lot of it comes up to me, and you have to trust me that I'm not just going to screw you or just be mean or, stuff, but I'm not. I absolutely want everybody to have a fun time. If you want to try something completely off the wall, like using your ice powers to become a speedster or stick to the walls, I'm like, okay, let's give that a shot. Like if you want to try jumping from one building to the next, what's your character? If you're a super athletic Spider-Man type, okay, get a 4 or better on a 20 side and you can jump from building to building. No problem. You're not going to have a problem with that, especially when you have like +10 to acrobatic rolls because you're freaking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If you're my giant fat butt at 6.5 feet tall, 400 pounds, trying to jump from one to the other,
Yeah.
okay, you got to hit a 19 or 20 to make it across that alley. If you do, good on you. You made it. You might have sprained
Yeah.
your ankles. We're going to check. But, like, if you make it, you make it. If not, it was nice knowing you. It just depends on who your character is. Like, what have you done up until now? Like, what are you good at? And what do you want to try? If you're a skinny little hacker that has always used your mind and never gone out in the field before, and you want to kick a door in, it's going to be a little bit harder role for you. But, if you're Colossus and you want to kick a door in, you kick the door in. We don't have to roll for that. That's not really a question.
Yeah. Man, that's so much fun. I think I need to seriously figure out how to get either a part of that a game like that, or I need to start learning how to do a game like that myself because that's something that's missing in my life very much, and I need to make that happen.
I'm saying,
All right, man. So you and I are very fortunate for the fact that we have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to talented friends online.
oh man.
There are so many people out there who are putting stuff out into the world that's some of the most amazing stuff I've seen. So, because of that, we always see lots of Kickstarters going on, lots of Indiegogos, lots of other projects out in the world. What are some of your favorite ones that are out right now or that are going to be coming out soon that you want to talk about?
Oh man. Hellion and Bash #2 is out right now by T.S. Luther. He's a friend that I met on TikTok over there,
Mhm.
in indie comics world over there. And he is not only is he one of the coolest, nicest guys that I've ever met, that like we really get along, we've became fast friends, but he is really one of the most talented writers that I have ever met. And this is the second issue of this series. It's set in a superhero world, but it's a crazy story, and it's basically like, what if Batman was the bad guy and he and Robin has really been getting mistreated and nobody cares because Batman gets the job done and the only person that does care is a supervillain. And so it's a really freaking awesome story. I'm super excited about it. It's live right now on Kickstarter. Uh, Tommy Moran from Fate Comics wrote one of my favorite first issues of all time, Beats #1, and Beats #2, I think, is either live or going to be live. I would have to check. I think it's coming out soon, I think. Uh, but Beats #1 was seriously my favorite first issue of a superhero comic ever. Like it doesn't spend a whole lot of time with exposition. It doesn't waste a lot of time. You get into the action really quickly. It explains what's going on, what her powers are, what her limitations are as the story goes on. It really is like, to me, I think it's a book everybody in indie comics needs to read to like up their game on how they're writing their superhero stories. Uh, Top notch book. I'm super excited for #2 of that. And I mean, and then like anything Kenny Aiken puts out,
Oh yeah.
I don't,
I
man,
think you and I have talked about that before. I think he's
dude,
incredible.
Apex is one of my favorite freaking stories.
Me
I've
too.
got I've got a box out there right now with his name on it, and the only reason I didn't open it a couple of days ago was because I was so sick I didn't know which way up was, and I didn't want to miss out on the full experience of
Yep.
being able to open and read this book because I was half out of it and didn't get to really enjoy it. So I'm saving it like, a special little treat
Yeah.
to get to read. I'm super excited for that
Yeah,
book.
I
Oh
I
man,
just I just got mine and opened it the other day. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but yeah, it's
that is one
beautiful.
of the few books like him and like Charlie McElvey. Anything from
Yep.
those two guys, I will stop working right now and read those books.
Yep.
And I don't do that for much of anything. This
Yeah.
bug that I got la last week is the first thing to knock me out for like 4 days of work in years. This is the biggest break I've taken in a long time. And so to actually get me to stop to read it right now is a big deal. And those two guys do it every time.
Yep. Very cool. All right, man. So last time we talked, you were just getting the ball rolling on School of Fish. Now you got a whole bunch of stuff you're doing. You're on Five Star Fridays, which is part of the Agents of Geekdom network, and you have a brand new show, Bicker and Beards. So why don't we talk a little bit about how all that stuff's going?
It's going pretty well. The Patreon's gone pretty good. I wish it had grown, ginormously and, there was thousands of people on there, paying a little bit every time. It seemed like such a great idea to me. You can subscribe and get, physical books shipped to you every month. You can subscribe and get digital books. You can, hang out, watch the podcast and stuff. For some reason, for some reason, our community is much more conditioned and much more ready to pay more to back a Kickstarter than to pay less and regularly get a book every month. For some reason, like $5 or $10 a month is like, I can't do that. I'll do 80 on a Kickstarter like every 3 months for you, but I can't see no
Yeah.
$10 a month. I can't see doing that. That's too much. And okay, okay, if you want to pay more on the Kickstarter, absolutely, feel free. It has been a really great place for the guys that want to get regular commissions from me because I put a handful of slots on there where you can get a half price monthly commission from me. And, and if you can afford that, it's, if you were the kind of guy that's going to hire me every month to do something anyway, like a variant cover or something, it's a great deal. And a couple of guys picked that up, and that helps a lot. The School of Fish art stream has been a whole lot of fun. I really enjoy getting to share the stuff that I've learned, and I really enjoy getting to bring people on when they ask me a good question. Like people will hit me up randomly and be like, man, how do I how do you do these buildings so quickly and so cool in 3D? And how do you do those? I want to up my game. And they're like, oh, dude, I got all kinds of tricks for that. It's easier to just bring you on the show and walk through how I do it and show you how I do it and let you ask your questions along the way and stuff and be able to answer them. And I love doing stuff like that. Like I've had people ask me like, how do you how do you do this or that with the color flat layers that you use? Because I'm always bragging about hire a color flatter because it sped me up so much. And so I'll absolutely like, bring Kyron on or Sarah or something and, walk through how I do it, what I'm doing, how I use it to my advantage, how it speeds me up, go through the process step by step. And it's also made my newsletter a lot more interesting, which you can sign up for. You can like go to my TikTok page, Mr. Fish Comics. It's on the link tree. You can sign up for the newsletter. It's absolutely free. You'll get 2 free digital comics for signing up for the newsletter. And I really wanted to make it one of the newsletters that you want to open, not just one of the, hey, we got a new book coming out. Hey, we got a new book coming out. We got a new book coming out. Oh, by the way, you know, I
Yeah, yeah.
I have hundreds of those coming to me every day that I don't open. But there's a few of them that like really get into the nitty gritty with cool writing tips or really interesting stories about their time in working for bigger publishers and stuff that have good information to learn from. And I was reminded of those old, like, drawing and graphic design magazines that you'd get in the 90s that would have like a CD in the back of it and you could download it and there'd be like, a Photoshop brush and a template and yeah, font and all kinds of, random stuff that you're probably not going to use, but it was cool to get all these cool digital extras on the little,
Yeah.
CD in the back. And
Mhm.
I was like, dude, I can absolutely make my newsletter something like that that's fun and interesting that you want to open.
Yeah.
So, like, not only does it have like what my next project is coming out on Kickstarter or what shows I'm going to be on this month, but it starts out with like, here's a cool asset that you can download for free from my Patreon. And you can go check my Patreon out. There's all kinds of free assets and brushes and stuff that you can download on there, page templates and stuff that I've uploaded. They're all free on there that you can go get. And then I'll like era episode of School of Fish. It shows you literally how I made that brush. Like when I was working on a book for Greg Mockman at Sierra Nova Comics recently, like I didn't think about it when he handed me the script at first. I read all the cool action stuff. I forgot the first of the book takes place during an MMA match in this gigantic stadium filled full of people. And you know your Uncle Fishy can't just, halfway work his way through something. Like I can't go
Yeah,
in half
yeah.
cocked. I gotta do it all the way. These gotta be real people. And so I ended up making a brush with like 30 or 40 or 50, I can't remember, different individual little people in there. And I walked through literally like how I made the brush, how I made these characters, how I use photo references from crowds and, use them as inspiration, not just trace straight off of them, but use them as like, okay, this is what that guy looks like. And then mix and match parts of different people out of it to get new characters and then load them into a brush. And then when you flip those characters left and right, now you got and then randomly be able to spray it out, make lines of people to put in stadium chairs and stuff. And now I can fill out stadiums really quickly with varying degrees of complexity. If they're little bitty tiny, they don't need all that detail. But when they're up close and personal, like they've got faces and buttons on their clothes and fingernails and stuff. And those brushes are free. You can go to my Patreon and download them and you can use them as is. You can use them, make money with them, use them for fun, whatever you want to do. Or you can go watch the School of Fish videos on my YouTube or on the Patreon page and literally watch how I did it and use that as a template to make your own brush with your own artwork, with your own characters drawn on it that look like your style and match seamlessly with your stuff. And that's what I'm a big advocate of is teaching you how to make these tools yourself. Like you can download mine and use them for sure. Absolutely, no problem. But I want to show you how to do it so that you can make this stuff seamlessly match to your stuff because it breaks my heart to see somebody that can do pretty cool art and then they got like a clip art brush in there that just doesn't match. Like it's so easy to make custom brushes to do some of that work for you easily that'll look like your artwork. Like the same way I do my buildings. I draw really cool flat faces of buildings in great detail, and then I will rough in a city in 3D and get all the perspective and everything going, and then bring these faces in and just bend them into perspective, get them shaped right to fill the spaces, mask out what I don't need, and boom, I have a city drawn, and it looks like I drew it. It looks like I would have drawn it anyway because it's my art.
Yeah.
If you want to do a city with my artwork, you can do that because I gave you the assets. I gave you some of them. I ain't giving everything away, but I gave you some of them. And I showed you a video on how to make your own. But like if you want to use it to make your own and do it, Godspeed, man. I want to teach you how to use these tools. And that has made the School of Fish thing so much more fun for me. And my buddy TS is much more organized than I am, and he helped me get it organized. So now, like, the newsletter comes out one week, and then the next week, the instructional video drops, like how I made that asset that I gave away. And the next week is like a live art stream where we're answering questions and doing stuff. And then the next one is Bicker and Beards, where me and him get on and talk about different stuff about the business, about making comics, about how we go through this and that, answering questions. Like last 2 weeks ago, I think. We had such a great conversation with the fans and stuff that were watching, and they were asking so many great questions that we didn't even get to the stuff we were planning on talking about. And we went for like 2 hours,
Oh man.
kind of like we went about laundry and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool that you do that because, a lot of people, aren't going to be so willing to help out. Like, I know there was one time where I, at one point entertained the idea of writing a comic script because I've been a prose writer for a long time. And they always say that, converting from prose to scripting isn't that tough, but I think I must be overthinking it because it's been really extremely difficult for me. So I kind of put out there, what are some references, for someone who wants to kind of get into script writing? And the very first answer I got as a reply was Google it, which sure is a fair answer, but it's not an extremely helpful answer. And it's not like I was asking people, to do it for me or like to show, like hold my hand and do it. But you've been there before. You've gone through that struggle. you know, it's cool that you're giving back to the community that way.
Oh man. Like I have been a working artist like since junior high. It's the predominant way I've made my living my entire life is off of my art. And, other than a couple of spots here or there with extra jobs for the holidays or something. And so I'm no stranger to like, making a living off my art, doing art all day. But the thought of like stepping out into doing my own indie comic was terrifying. And if I hadn't have stumbled across a couple of YouTube videos that talked about like how they went through digital publishers like Kablam to get their books printed and how you could do a Kickstarter to get the money to pay for it. I didn't even know they had comic books on Kickstarter. When I launched T-Man and Hyperstrike, I had zero backed projects. Now I'm like way over 300, 6 years later, because I back a lot of comics because I enjoy indie comics.
Yeah.
Um, but everything I've learned along the way, most of it has been pretty hard won. Like it took a lot of fighting and digging and scrounging to get all the little pieces to put together to figure out how to do things. And I'm absolutely a rising tide raises all boats kind of guy. Like if if I had to struggle to get here, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make your road up easier. Like I'm gonna tell you where the handholds are. I may not know how to get to the top of the mountain from here, but I can sure tell you how I got up here. If you find a better way, shout it out to the people down below you. Let me know for the way back down so I know how to get an easier route. Like I'm all about helping out the people around me, the people below me. Like I would have given anything to have a fish in my corner when I was a kid and I was dreaming of making comics or just wanting to make up my own characters and wanting to draw them better or wanting to make my art look a little bit better and a little bit more professional or figure out why does it look wonky? Like what am I doing wrong? I know it's not right, but I don't know how to get where I want to be from where I'm at. Like I would have given anything for somebody with just the experience to be able to tell me like, oh, this is what you're doing wrong. Or like, oh, you need to flip it and look at it in a mirror. Or now digitally you can just flip the page. And now all of
Right.
a sudden all those things that were wonky in your pencils, all of a sudden they really jump out when you flip the page over. And so there's all kinds of like easy things that I can tell the young people that are coming up. But I mean, why not be a help? I understand like the people that told you to Google it. It can get tiring sometimes when the 15th person in a week is asking you the same question and you don't
Sure.
want to type out the same answer again.
Sure.
Understand. Like sometimes
Yeah.
it does get a little repetitive, which is why another reason I started making the School of Fish videos because now I can literally be like, hey, go check out my Patreon. They're all listed right there. They're all on my YouTube now. Like all the old ones that were like Patreon exclusive are on all public on YouTube now. So like you can go back and watch all of them and learn away, man. I literally a whole lot of them are just step by step walking through one thing. Sometimes we get distracted with comments from the peanut gallery, in the comment section, but I try to stay on task as best I can with all the crazy comments coming at me. But man, why not be helpful? Why not lift people up? It's not gonna take any of my piece of the pie just because you get a piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of lifting people up, the last time we talked, you drew one of my characters, Wild Bill Hippo, and it's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. It's such a cool. It really lifted me up to kind of encourage me to kind of get back into doing some more writing, which is something I still need to do, but that was very cool of you to do. And I really love it a lot. So I want to tell you thank you. I told you I think last time,
Absolutely,
but
man.
I can't tell you thank you enough. It was pretty cool of you to do that.
And on the subject though, for writing, two of my best tips are find some trusted friends that are other creative writers that you could like get in a voice, get in a chat room like this and be like, hey, let's get together for an hour on Wednesday night or whatever and help me plot out this story. And having other people to sound off of, a lot of times when I do that, I end up doing 90% of it myself anyway, but just like the body doubling of having other people there helps my ADD, helps
Yeah, I
my
get that.
anxiety. And I'm like, oh, when my buddies are here, I got to get to work. I can't make excuses now because they're here with me.
Yep, I get that.
And and then having the sounding board to be able to throw ideas off of helps make those pieces richer and more interesting. Uh, like literally the first issue of Alice Lost in Wonderland is so much better because I was talking back and forth with T.S. Luther while I was working on the plot, and he helped me hone off some rough edges that were unnecessary and tie some threads together in the whole time travel timey-wimey nonsense to make it more interesting. And you don't see that payoff yet, but it made the book a whole lot better and it's made the overall story so much better.
Nice.
So that's a huge tip. And my second one is for me, the thought of like sitting down to write is terrifying. It
Oh,
it it
absolutely.
inspires me with so much anxiety.
Oh yeah.
Sitting down to a blank page is joy. I know, like drawing, I can do anything in the world. Like I've got a script and a blank page. I'm excited. This is going to be awesome. And
Yeah.
in a couple of hours, I'm going to do it all over again. Sitting down to a blank page to write is terrifying. Sitting down to make an outline about the book, that's not scary. I'm just going
Yeah.
to put 3 points. I'm just going to put like where I want to start, what I need to hit in the middle, and where I want to end up in the book. That's not hard. That's easy. And then, okay, well, I've got those. I might as well do like, well, how am I going to get from here to here? And from the middle to here, I need these three things to happen. Well, maybe if I move this one over here, and maybe if I move that one, oh, okay, then that would be cool foreshadowing. And then I just have to fill in between those and then all I need is a little bit of dialogue and I'm done. Like, yeah, I'm doing my own book, so I don't have to write out big, complicated explanations of what the room looks like because I'm already envisioning that as I'm writing it.
Yeah.
I'm unique in that fashion. But just going from an outline, and I've noticed a lot of the clients that I work with start out that same way. I can see where their outline starts and where they filled in between it. And it works. It takes a lot of the pressure off for me anyway, rather than sitting down, page one, panel one, that's intimidating. But like, this
Absolutely.
is where we start, this is where we end. It's easy.
Yeah, I think that might be my biggest thing is I used to have a really good sounding board of people, but I don't really have that anymore. And it's kind of just been me. And so, like you said, it's kind of scary when it's just you and you know you're capable of doing it, but it's always nice to have that person there saying like, yeah, that's a good or hey, maybe we could change this or whatever. So,
Or just having somebody there that'll be honest with you and say
yeah.
like, you know what? That's not bad, but it could be better. Let's, maybe if we did this or did that or, pulled the feathers off the top now. Oh yeah, now it's really rocking.
Yeah.
And I absolutely, man, I volunteer as tribute. If you need somebody to, hang out with and talk out a story, hit me up, man. I'm happy to help out. Like I said, it takes nothing to pay back and help out other people around you. And, I've made a lot of awesome friends and, learned a lot. One of my favorite books in the 109 books that I've worked on now in 6 years is one that I only helped plot. That's the only thing I did with that one. It's the only one like that in the whole 109 list. But it's one of my favorite stories, and I got to add some really cool stuff to it. And I can't wait for that book to come out. I don't get to draw it or color it or anything, but I got to help plot it, and I got to help really pull some of the cool ideas together. And I got to put a little bit of stank on this speech that the hero gives, and oh, I can't wait for this book. I'm so excited to just have a special thanks on the credit page to Mr. Fish because I got to help out on that one. But it is one of my favorite stories that I've got to work on, and I didn't draw a thing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I definitely would probably hit you up because yeah, like you said, I used to have a writing partner and I would always contribute, things I liked, things I didn't like, and that usually ended up making them very mad and they didn't talk to me for a few days afterwards. But then they'd realize that maybe my changes, kind of made things better. But, when I kind of asked for the same thing, I didn't quite get the same, like they just agreed with everything I said. And I said, I, I
That's
I think I'm a pretty decent writer, but I don't think I'm that great of a writer that everything I say or everything I do is just perfect and doesn't have anything that
oh,
could be better.
you that's a really hard thing to find, and when you
Yeah.
can find friends that will be honest with you, even if it hurts, it's rare. And I admit, like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings,
Oh yeah,
but like, and I've had to learn to be careful because like while I'm okay, I'm autistic. I'm fine with being bluntly honest with somebody,
sure.
doesn't hurt my feelings. But if I'm worried that you're going to get your feelings hurt and then we're not going to be friends anymore, then that can make it harder to want to be
Sure.
honest in that
Yeah.
situation. And some people can take it and some people cannot take it. And when I find friends that can and can dish it out to me and be blunt with me and be like, you know what, this is really good, but where you put that word balloon is really distracting. You need to move it over here. Like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And or you don't need this whole word balloon because you're repeating yourself. And like, but I like it. It hurts my feelings. But you're right. Someone will change it.
Yep. I've gotten a little bit of that with John McIntosh. Shout out to John, Mr. Green Lightning himself. He's been really good at, when he has time, he's been kind of popping into stuff I've written and he'll read it back and he'll kind of give me pointers and how to things to make it better. So it's nice having one person, but it would be even better to grow that a little bit. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's really nice to have that because yeah, it's hard sometimes to not take that stuff personally, but
Oh
once
yeah.
you know that it's not coming from anywhere mean or vicious or anything like that,
Hmm.
it's just coming from a place of help, that definitely helps a lot.
And for me, like in those groups that I've managed to foster, I I'm all about the like, hey, feel free to throw something out. Like, toss out an idea. It may not stick. We may not use it. It's no harm, no foul. We're brainstorming stuff here,
Yeah,
but throw out an idea. Even if we don't use that idea, maybe it inspires a variation of another idea. Maybe it reminds somebody over here of a story that happened to them as a kid, which leads to this story, which inspires this guy to this idea that ends up in the book. But like, toss it out. Ain't gonna hurt anybody's feelings. Like, maybe you use it, maybe you don't, and it's been really helpful to me and I really enjoy doing it and have always been happy to jump in and help. There's only been once or twice where I've jumped in with a group of absolute strangers and that didn't go well because I didn't know any of the people involved. So
yeah,
and some of them didn't handle new ideas very well because this is my baby and this is the way it has to be and this is the way it has to be because that's the way it has to be.
yeah,
And I'm like, no, none of this is set in stone, man. This is all Play-Doh until it gets printed, man. Let's
yep.
let's see what we can make out of it.
Yeah, those brainstorm sessions are fun. That's something that me and my former writing partner used to do every Tuesday. We'd block out like an hour and we would just throw a bunch of weird ideas out. And, like you said, sometimes, the original idea that came out wasn't anything but mixed with another little bit from over here.
Oh man.
It turns into some real magic real quick.
That's I've got this note just goes on. I was just putting a new story idea on it, and I had to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll to get to the bottom of the thing. And like and then just watch it spin for a while, and then again. Finally got to the bottom, put my story idea on there, but I write them all down because
Yeah,
maybe this one isn't going to be a gem. Maybe it'll never see print, but it's surprising how often, you're working on something else and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I got that idea. And if I take this idea and I take that little plum off of that one and put it over here and take that little sprocket off this idea and stick it over here, now you come up with something really cool.
yeah,
And that's how Alice evolved from a story that I was working on for 30 years. And then I took, this Alice lost in an interdimensional rift idea and meshed it with my time traveling barbarian idea and ended up with this really cool epic story. And all of a sudden, all the characters started to fit into all these public domain roles. And, characters that used to be like, evil wizards are now the cobbler and, all this stuff. And they just all start to fit. And gangsters become the Queen of Hearts and all this. It just all clicked in together. And it's fun, man. I love it.
yeah, man. And yeah, like you, I have got a bunch of notes in my notes app that are just little pieces of story, pieces of character name, or it's so cool to just kind of go through there and like, oh, this idea is not great, but if I take this idea, put it here, make a whole brand new idea. And sometimes I don't put enough notes, so I'm like, what the heck was I thinking when I wrote this note? I have some. I'll have some random name and I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like I have one that's Amos Bartleby. I'm like, what? Like I had this somewhere, but I don't know what it was for. So I just got to try to
Oh,
figure out what to make out of that. But yeah, I just got to make sure I make more notes. That's my
yeah. Yeah, you definitely got to do that. I it Write it down. For anybody out there listening, write the idea down. I know you think you're going to remember it and it's
Mm,
brilliant and you write the thing down. You will remember like 1 out of 20 of those ideas, but you're not going to remember all of them. And I am forever looking through old sketchbooks and finding story ideas written down, and I'm reading these things with awe and amazement like I've never heard of them before, and I don't remember coming up with it. I don't remember what I was thinking when I came up with it. I don't remember any of the little sketches that I drew beside it. Uh, Write it down, put as much of the important details down as you can. I've learned like I can really cut a whole lot of it down for myself into a shorthand and
yeah,
know what I'm talking about. But yeah, write it down. You will thank yourself. I'm finding awesome ideas all the time that I wrote down like in high school or college or in my 20s that I
sure.
absolutely forgot about. They got lost in a box somewhere and now I found them and now they go in with all the other notes and get
Yep.
shuffled around and reused.
That's the way to do it. All right, man. So speaking of your own comic books, the last time we chatted, we kind of had a split show where we talked about Ka the Cro-Magnon, which one of my absolute favorite books, and Green Zone Life in the Blocks, which is what we're here to talk about today. We talked a little bit about Green Zone back then, but for those who haven't had a chance to listen to the first time we talked, or those that don't know about Green Zone Life in the Blocks, let's take a minute to talk about what it is.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, theys and them. Uh, in Green Zone Life in the Blocks, anybody can be born a genome, basically a mutant. You could be born with superpowers. Maybe you shoot fireballs. Maybe you have spots. Maybe you have fur all over your body. It could be any number of things. Like you could have really cool powers. You could have really terrible things that, leave you crippled. Uh, who knows? But the one thing everybody is sure of is that you're absolutely a supervillain waiting to happen. You are absolutely one of the bad ones. Enough people with powers have done enough bad things, enough things have gone wrong that humans just, no, it's over. You lose your citizenship. You're illegal. You're an illegal alien living in your own hometown. Doesn't matter that your parents were human. Doesn't matter if you were human until you were in your 20s and you were a late bloomer. Nope. Now all of a sudden you're illegal. You lose your rights and citizenship. You get shoved into green zones, which are ghettos, and you get shoved into the blocks, which are these giant overbuilt projects, giant concrete things that you can't blast out of with your powers. And humanity shoves you in there and forgets about you. And, you're all monsters, you're all terrible, you're all just gangsters and thugs and supervillains waiting to happen. And, humanity goes on and you sit there and suffer. Uh, if you want to get out and make a better life for yourself, there is one little caveat, the Genome Accords of like 1968, that give you a path to citizenship. If you serve the greater good as a civil servant for 5 years and prove that you're not a threat to society, prove you're one of the good ones, then you can get out and get your green card and get your citizenship and own property, vote, buy a house, open a business, whatever you want to do. Up until then, anything you do is illegal. Like, if you make food out of stuff that you can manage to find and try and sell it for $2 on the street, you're committing a crime. They could throw you in prison for that if they wanted to, because anything you do is illegal. It's a brutal life growing up in the blocks. And so, maybe you get out and join the military or join the fire department or sanitation if you're not afraid of mobsters. Or you could join the cops. But It's a terrible way to go any way you look at it. They don't tell you. The humans like to pat themselves on the back and say, well, they could pull themselves up by their bootstraps. If they wanted citizenship, there's a path. They could prove that they're not a threat. They could join the force for 5 years. They don't tell you that like 1 in 5,000 people make it to the end. They don't tell you how many people end up going to prison for life for accidentally using their powers on somebody while they're, doing this. Like, some of the characters like Virgil Green, he's this giant 8 foot tall lizard monster looking thing. He looks like a giant horny toad. He's humongous. And his only real powers are that he looks scary, and when he gets really scared, his blood pressure shoots up and he sprays blood out of his eyes, which is a terrible power to have.
Yeah.
But this is the breaks. This is what he's got. He's big and scary looking. Inside, he is the kindest, sweetest dude you would ever want to meet. All he wants to do is get out of the blocks, open a bookstore, hide in the back for the rest of his life, reading novels, pretending to be anything other than a giant, scary monster, and never deal with people again. But he can't do that unless he risks his life as a cop for 5 years first. He's so big, they can't even fit him in one of the cars. He has to drive around in the back of a truck because he's too freaking big to fit in the cop car. He nearly gets kicked out on his first day because he's late for the morning meeting because he got randomly selected for looking like a monster to go down for genetic testing. And when his genetic testing showed that his mutation's pretty small, the doctor didn't believe that and pulls out a big drill to do a bone sample on him because, these results can't be right. We need to get to the bottom of this. Clearly, you're a monster. You're a mutant animal. You're beyond the pale. You're not an actual human. And he has to go through this all the time. His body is all scarred up. And because of that, he's a few minutes late and nearly gets flushed out of the whole project. No chance at citizenship because of that first day. It's brutal. They don't tell you how far this deck is stacked against you. And like Bellamy is one of the characters who's based on our daughter. She's like 5 foot nothing. She's 90 pounds, covered in razor sharp quills all over her body. If she bumps into you on the subway, she could go to prison for the rest of her life. So she has to learn how to take down people that could be potentially 8 foot tall lizard monsters and not accidentally stick them with her quills and go to prison herself. How is she going to do this? How is she going to find the power and authority to stand up for herself? She's clearly uncomfortable in her own skin. She's clearly afraid of hurting everybody. She's always got her arms tucked in and everything. It's a scary life when you're a walking pincushion and anybody that bumps into you could send you to prison. It's terrifying. So this is the world they live in. They have to maneuver through a corrupt law enforcement system. They have to maneuver through a world that hates them. The humans hate them to start with for being genomes. The humans don't look at them as real cops. They're like mall cops. They don't take them seriously. When are the real cops going to get here? The other genomes look at them as race traders because usually the only time you see a genome cop, they're coming around to throw their weight around and, beat up on people like they did on Virgil when he was 5 years old at the beginning of the book. Uh, it's a hard system. By the end of the second issue, there's been a bombing at their police station and the whole place got blown up. By the end of the third issue, Bellamy's training officer, Corporal Waters, is laying on the ground, possibly dead, with her hands swole up and infected, because when she got mad at Bellamy for not following orders, she accidentally grabbed her by the arm and got stuck by those quills. And in the chaos of the explosion and having to try and, manage everything after the explosion in book three, because nobody knew where the sergeant was, she took over. She's running command. She doesn't have time to stop and get her hand looked at. Nearly kills her by the end of the book. Issue four, we find out, is she going to survive? Danny Kim got buried under all that rubble. Virgil went back and forth out of the fire dozens of times looking for Danny, pulling people out of the fire. He got burned terribly. Is he going to survive his burns? Is Danny going to survive the damage from the building falling on him? Is Waters going to survive the infection? All of this and more is what's going to get addressed in issue four of GreenZone. And this is wrapping up the end of their very first shift on the force. This is a world of chaos, people. You need to go check it out. Go, MrFish.com will take you right there.
Absolutely. Now that's intense. So I remember when you and I first talked about it, you said you were inspired by, I can't remember, I wish I would have written it down, but you were inspired by a movie or a show on Netflix that had a similar name.
Uh, no, not that I can think of. I actually, oh, I think what you're thinking of is I got the idea from a dream that I had. And in the dream, I was watching the Netflix show of this story.
Ah,
That's
that's what it was.
that's the story because I was watching I was watching like, the middle of episode 4 or something of the Netflix drama, and Bellamy was talking to one of my other characters that y'all haven't met yet in the books. And she basically just ran down the whole plot of the show, and then out walks Virgil out of this, like, gang hideout, and this big lizard man walks by, and they drive off together in the cop car, and they're talking about something else. And I woke up, wrote down as much as I could remember of that story, and then as I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay, well, if this is true and this is true in the world, then obviously this would be true. And if these parts are true, then this would have had to happen and this would have had to happen. And then eventually I'd fleshed out the whole world and society and, like, what happened in the civil rights movement in the 60s and all this stuff. And so, like, there's all kinds of cool history for it now. But
That's
yeah.
crazy. So did you just come up with all this in a dream, or did you like pull this from anywhere, from any other kind of pop culture reference or anything like that?
When I'm describing it to people, I say it's like Training Day meets X-Men, just
Okay.
to give you an understanding for, like, what's going on, cops on the mean street, mutants, the whole, now that, like, Bright came out, like, it's a good kind of example of what's going on a little bit too.
Yeah.
For people that are trying to wrap their brain around it. It's it's admittedly a harder sell because it's not a world people are used to. Like, if you put a hero on top of a gargoyle in the rain, talk about, the people are scum and I'm, going to save the city from, violence and whatnot. You're like, okay, this is Gotham. That's Batman. I know. Let's go. And I can hop right into the story and we don't have to explain a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Or if I put, a hero flying through the bright sky in a, futuristic city, and, and he's all about, being an example of, peace, justice, and the American way. Like, oh, okay, this is Superman. All right, it's Metropolis. You got all these caveats that we're used to with, like, superhero comics. They're like, okay, I know where we are. This is a cop drama. This is an episodic cop show filled with mutants, and the world, it is absolutely illegal to be a mutant. There are there are genomes that operate as government, sanctioned heroes, basically go pro. Like, if you've got really good abilities and you're handsome and you're good on camera, then you might get, selected from your high school team or your college team or something, and go pro and work for Alpha, which is the overarching international organization that organizes, professional genomes that they send out to save the day. Your Superman and your Batman, but we don't really see them. Like, this is about the cops on the ground. This is about everybody else. Like, there are the couple of kids from the inner city school that might go to the NFL or, the NBA or something, but there's a whole lot of other kids out there that don't. And so it's about everybody else that grows up, with their life behind the eight ball. Everybody that grew up without the same, head start somebody else got, didn't get the same, genetic luck to be really good at this sport or that sport or whatever, and, are trying to claw their way up. And a lot of them take the easy way out and join the gangs. Uh, it's kind of almost impossible not to join the gangs. Like, you see in book 2, literally the only reason that the gang that runs Virgil's block doesn't have any way to force him to join is because he doesn't have anybody. He's never had a mother or a father. He's been alone his entire life. He's never had a piece of food. He hasn't scraped off the floor or clothing. He hasn't pulled out of a dumpster. He's been alone his entire life. So there's nobody for them to threaten. There's nobody like, we're going to kill your mama. We're going to kill your little sister if you don't do what we say. there's nothing. So there's nothing to intimidate him with. What are you going to do? Hurt him? He's been hurt his entire life. So, pain is no stranger. He's not afraid of that. Like, you can't do anything worse than anybody else has done. And he has nothing to fear because he has nothing to lose. And that's the only reason they can't force him to be their man on the inside on the police force. And, he's going to pay for that. But, you know, I can't give everything away, man. I need to
Sure.
go over there and back the book too, so I can't. I'm probably giving away too much already.
No, you're good. So speaking of that, you do have a Kickstarter out for issue 4 right now where you can also pick up all the previous issues. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Kickstarter.
The Kickstarter has been going pretty well. Let me see. Let me check out, see where it's at right now. I launched it. Uh, what day is today?
The fourth.
Oh yeah, I launched it yesterday morning. We're almost at $900, and the $3,000 goal. We're doing pretty good. Uh, I'm excited about it. It's got all four issues that you can pick up there if you want to. You can get them digital. You can get them physical. You can also each book that I've ever done is on there as an individual add-on digitally and print. So all 15 of my own books that I've done over the last few years are there and available as add-ons. You can get t-shirts like this one that I just heat pressed myself today.
Nice.
Uh, on there. I like doing the DTF prints on high quality shirts myself because I can control the quality of the shirts, and I am so tired of, paying a lot of money to get a shirt from comic book that I really enjoy just to have it fall apart in three washes or all the print washes off the first time. Or they're like, oh, yeah, no, you can't wash that. No. Or, you got to turn it inside out on cold water and, hang it upside down to dry or whatever. Like, I want quality shirts that
You
I
wanted
can
to
wear
wear
all
that
day
shirt?
long
That shirt's
and
just
be
for looking at.
comfortable in. Yeah, and I got sensory issues. So like I want a shirt that I'm comfortable wearing, so I
Yeah.
know you're going to be comfortable wearing it. I
Yep.
am a giant, so I want a shirt, I want to know that I can get shirts in my size because none of the drop shipping places are going to do shirts up in my size. And or if they do, they're going to be really weirdly cut. So I like to make sure I can get quality stuff. So that's why I like doing them myself. But you can get shirts from all the different series. You can even get the acrylic standees for Alice and Big Ten from the Alice Lost in Wonderland campaign. Man, all kinds of cool add-ons and stuff in there. All kinds of different tiers at different price levels depending on what you want. If you want to get a physical catch-up tier of all the books of GreenZone at one time, there's a tier for that. If you want to get the new book in a t-shirt, there's a tier for that. Whatever you want. Or there's also a build your own tier. So you can pay $5, which covers, like a Gemini mailer and shipping, and then just put whatever add-ons you want in there and get specifically, like maybe you don't want this book, but maybe you missed Alice Lost in Wonderland, you want to grab a copy. It's a great way to do that. I also added this time a delay shipping tier. If you're one of those people that backs all of my books, or you're like one of my overseas backers that backs all the time, but shipping to England or Australia or Singapore is really expensive, then for $1 you can put this add on there, the delayed shipping one. And when the campaign's over and I get the funds, I'll refund you what you paid for shipping, and I will hold your package until the next campaign and ship it all out at one time. Or you can delay it again till the next campaign. And I'm probably going to be running probably four this year. So,
Nice.
if you want to bump it down the road and we just do that, big shipping cost to Australia at one time, absolutely, no problem. I'll be happy to hold on to you. I got packages from 6 years ago from T-Man and Hyperstrike. I don't even have access to the backer list on that anymore,
Oh
but
man.
some people never send in their stuff, and I'm never going to get rid of those packages because, OCD. I got to hold on to it because I paid for it.
I get it. That's awesome, man. Like I really like Kickstarters like that from creators that not only offer the books that are currently available, but they'll also offer ones that you might have missed. Like,
Hmm.
like for me, like we'll use Caw for an example. I got, the first couple issues of Caw, but I missed, the most recent two. So I was able to not only go back and, grab extra ones, of the previous ones. I could get the new ones too. So it was really cool that you can kind of like mix and match, pick your own, get, if a book that has nothing to do with it. I know John Westhoff, a lot of times on his Kickstarters, he'll have a Kickstarter for a specific book, but it's like, oh, he's also offering these other books that I totally missed out on. So I got to make sure I snag one of those too. So it's really
Oh
cool.
man.
It's really cool when you can, get a whole bunch. You can catch up on all the catalog of the different creators. It's really cool.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing with the way the algorithm works. Like I nearly missed one of the Apex books from Kenny Aiken. Like
Yeah, me
I
too.
it was at the last day when I saw a post about it.
Yep.
And like I see his posts all the time about
Yeah.
other stuff, but
Mm.
I never saw anything about the campaign. And we all miss these things all the time. And so like, a lot of people don't know that I did the Fishtails anthology book and there's two issues of that out there. So, you can pick that up. Or maybe you got the first one and didn't get the second one. Or like you said, maybe you missed, Caw 3. Uh, it's there. You can get it. I
Yeah.
I like having that option for the add-ons, and and as a backer of all these campaigns, like I like to be able to get what I want. And I mean, I understand why sometimes you have a really high price tier that has something really special in it that you can only get there with all of the variant covers and all the everything else. Like that's for a select tier of backer that I ain't. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
I'm not backing that $300 tier for that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not me.
Yep.
But, maybe I really just want that t-shirt, and being able to like just go in and get a build my own tier and get the t-shirt that I want, because you know, maybe I already read the book. I mean, for one thing, like I got a lot of friends that I saw all the pages coming in. Like I've already read the thing. They already gave me a PDF copy of it. I want
Yep.
to be supportive, like I need, but I want that t-shirt. I'll rock that t-shirt. I will wear that on School of Fish and be like, hey,
Yep.
check out my buddy's book.
Yep.
Uh, so
Yeah, I've been
yeah.
privy to a lot of that too, because I'll have a lot of creators, send me stuff early so I can read it, before they come on the show or whatever. So it's like,
Hmm.
I've got a copy of it, but I want to show them some support. So yeah, grabbing a t-shirt, grabbing some stickers, grabbing some, past books. Like, I'll bring up John for an example. He sent me some stuff early before where it's like I've already got the book. So I want to support him still, so I won't necessarily pick up the book that's, the specific Kickstarter, but I'll grab, a couple issues of his Magic the Gathering magazine, or hey, his other, CPS, the Child Possession Services, I'll grab that one. So that way it helps support, but it also helps me fill in my catalog. And like with Apex, I was the same route. I missed it. I think it had just closed, and I messaged him like, "Hey man, I just saw this. I missed it. Is there any way I could back still?" Because with him, he always offers that special coin. I don't know if you know about that. And I've got all of them, and I was missing this one. I'm like, I really need to. And he's like, oh yeah, man, late backers are open right now. Just go on and get hooked up, and I'll get you. And I was like, awesome. So it's really cool to have stuff like that.
Yeah, I started digital because I love backing digital comics. Like I back a lot of digital comics.
Yeah.
I enjoy them because I can take 800 books with me on a thumb drive on
Yep.
vacation and read whatever I want to read. I can't carry a short box with me on vacation. My
Yep.
wife won't let me do that. So like I love them for that reason. And
Yeah.
I can burn through a bunch of books real quick when I have time. I can zoom in and, when I can't find my glasses, I can make the lettering as big as I want. I love it. I'm a
Yeah.
huge digital supporter. That's why I like making sure I have really cool digital tiers on here. And I'm trying to work on stuff to make my digital tiers way more interesting in the future. Um, but I've always been a big digital supporter, so I supported all of his stuff early that way. And once the trade came out, I was like, okay, now's when I'm switching to physical because
Yep.
I really regret that I
Yep.
didn't have physical copies of everything else.
Yeah.
And so now, from now on, it's physical everything. But I was like, I'll check it out. It became one of my absolute favorite books.
It's so
Like I
good.
literally just backed it because he was on my friends list and I saw it.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I haven't hit my budget for the month. I'll back it.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorite books.
It's so good. It's
It
so
is.
good.
It is. It's just so much fun. It doesn't have to be super crazy complicated. It doesn't have to be more than it is. It's just awesome, and
Yep.
I love it.
And digital is a good way to go because space eventually becomes a thing, and there's only so much space you can put comic books in. And it's funny because I had one person who you and I both know that I can tell you about later. Um, but I backed at a digital level, like, oh, I don't even like to talk to people who back digital because, digital is not important as the physical copies that matter. And I was like, if I'm a creator, I'm not going to go tell my backers that because, every backer is important. It doesn't matter what level they back at. It doesn't matter, who, what version of the comic they get, as long as they're
Ooh,
supporting you, it's
son,
super
I need to
important.
have a talk with somebody up in here. I need to have a come to Jesus meeting with somebody up in here. Because like as a digital back, as somebody who does back a lot, I back a lot of physical books too. I
Yeah,
have Gemini mailers showing up every other day.
out the wazoo.
But I still like to back a lot of digital books. It lets me back more, especially during my own Kickstarters when I'm on podcast and meeting all these other people with awesome books, and like I can't not back it because it's awesome.
Right,
I can't back them all for $60.
right.
So, backing them for $5 is easy.
Yeah, yeah.
But as an example, I backed Kenny Aiken's like, first Apex book on a whim for like $5 or whatever for the digital tier. And I have backed every book that he's done since then. I have shared
Yeah,
nearly
me too.
every post of his I've seen since then for his Kickstarter. I
Yep,
always share out when I back his Kickstarter. I always shout him out when somebody asks me on a podcast, who are one of your favorite creators? I always list him in there among the greats of people that I love.
yeah,
Like, because I backed at the digital tier, dude.
yep.
Like, come on, man. And it's nothing but profit for the creator. Like, it doesn't cost you anything to email out a PDF to somebody. You can email out a whole bunch
True.
with one click to a whole bunch of people,
Yep.
and you didn't have to get anything printed. You didn't have to pay any shipping costs. That's pure profit on your end. Like, the last couple of my campaigns, like 40 something percent of my backers were digital backers. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. Hallelujah. I'm happy to have y'all on board, man.
Yeah.
I hope you pick up the rest of the stuff, man. Let's keep on going. I'd take this whole thing digital if they let me, man.
Yep.
I'd be fine with that. The people that like the physical stuff, I'm all about that too. I like having a book. I gotta admit,
Yep.
I like everything about them. I like flipping through them. I like making them. I like bookbinding, man. The whole freaking process. But but I love my digital backers, man. You can't knock them, dude. That's a
Yep.
fan right there.
It's true. And yeah, Kenny, I was lucky enough to have him on the show because I'm like, dude, when I'm talking to creators, I need to have you on my show just because I just love you so much. He's such a cool guy. I haven't heard from him in a while, so I think now it's probably time for me to reach out and see, make sure he's doing okay, make sure everything's going good. Because you got to do that sometimes. You don't hear from someone
Oh
for a
yeah,
while
man.
because they're busy working on a book, so you just got to kind of check in and see what's going on.
Some of us working on multiple at one time.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right, man. So I'll make sure we get the word out. We'll get the link out to everybody. Make sure everyone knows about GoMrFish.com. The Kickstarter ends March 3rd, so make sure you don't wait. You get on it, you take a look, find something you like, and make sure you share it with your friends because even if you're
Share,
not
share, share.
even if you're not able to support, sharing is just as good. So make sure you get the
Mhm.
word out, let everybody know. Mr.
Absolutely,
Fish,
man.
what do you got coming up after this?
Oh man, I am working on a book with T.S. Luther. It's like a kind of a horror comedy book that we're working on that's really cool. It is all penciled, inked, and lettered. I just have to finish coloring it, and then we're shopping it around. We have one publisher interested. We may shop it around to a couple of more. I'm not sure what we're going to do on that yet. But that's going to be going to a publisher this year. When it comes out is anybody's guess.
Sure.
We're working on a couple of pitches that we're going to pitch further up the ladder to like Scholastic and some other places and see
Nice.
if we can get some nibbles on some stuff there.
It's awesome.
And I've got more issues of Alice coming out this year for sure. And the GreenZone trade's going to come out probably towards the end of the year with all four issues and like extra material, all the short stories and stuff that I've ever done involving the world of GreenZone, and I'm going to be doing like a director's cut, adding extra pages in, reordering some of the pages. Some pages I'm probably going to cut up and add extra panels to put in the stuff that I had to cut out originally to make them fit into the short things, individual little floppy comics, because you only got so many pages to work with to keep it all, cost effective.
Yeah.
So I'm going to recut it, put it all together the way I wanted it to be, put back in some of the jokes and scenes that I had to cut out because we didn't have room for it. And so I'm really excited to get to do those new scenes and stuff that I wanted to do from the get-go. I'm looking forward to that stuff. So
Nice.
that's going to be awesome. It's going to be a fat book too. It's going to be huge.
I'm excited. And now, before I let you go, I want to see if you have a minute to share some advice about people running a Kickstarter. So, if like for new people who want to run a Kickstarter, or even for old hats who have run Kickstarters forever, what's some advice you'd want to share?
Hmm. The pregame is really important. It's the part that I'm probably the weakest on myself. Uh, but I'm also a one-man show, so I'm constantly having to, pencil and ink and color and letter and publish, my own stuff along with trying to promote the Kickstarter. So it's always a balancing act. Doing the pregame ahead of time, getting the word out ahead of time, getting people excited, getting that mailing list activated, getting the pre-launch page set up plenty early enough, driving people to that pre-launch page loudly and proudly, regularly. That's the most important thing, I think, to me, because the more people know about it ahead of time, the more likely they are to get in there on the first couple of days and back it, and things will steamroll from there, and things will grow. Uh, but like we said, it's real easy with the algorithm to not see a post until nearly the end of the campaign,
Yeah.
or sometimes months after a campaign's over.
Yeah.
So pregame, get the word out as much as you can. Work on that mailing list, something that you can control yourself, that you can get the word out to. And like I'm trying to do, try and find a way to make that mailing list something interesting that they're going to want to open other than just another, hey, I got a new book coming out. Because if you back a lot of indie books, you get a whole lot of those. And, they just all become a C. But if you got something interesting in there that's going to make me want to open it, then I'm going to check it out and be like, oh, hey, look, there's that book I want to get.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
all I got, man.
That works, man. That is good enough for me. So, for those of us who don't already keep up with you, where can we tune in, to you to find out where do we keep up on all the new stuff that's coming? Where can people find you?
I would say TikTok is the best place to find me most times, but we don't know what's going to happen there.
That's true.
So I'm probably going to be moving a lot of my focus over to YouTube,
Okay.
uh, with the School of Fish videos and stuff and the short videos and stuff. And I'm making everything available there too, as well as on my Patreon. You can absolutely go check out my Patreon if you really want to stay up to date with stuff and get access to all my cool digital back issues. You can go over there right now and sign up for $5. Get access to all these digital books already. So, not trying to take money out of my own Kickstarter, but I'm just saying if you want to sign up for the Patreon, you could do that.
Sure.
Uh, um, so that there, I mean, I'm on Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook a whole lot. I do all my communication with clients and stuff there, and I make posts and stuff. But honestly, I work like anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day, usually 7 days a week, making comics. So I don't have a whole lot of time for just scrolling social media. And usually, if I do, it's usually TikTok because those are quicker and shorter and easier. And I don't have to read after a whole day of looking and reading my glasses and drawing. I don't have to strain my eyes quite as hard.
Yeah,
So I tend to be over there a lot.
that works. Now for me, I want to make sure I thank Polygon Horizon. Their song Pizza Force is the song we use for the show. Make sure to go check them out on Bandcamp. They're a great band. Let's show them some love. You can find the show Feel by Weird on Instagram and Facebook mostly. TikTok. For as long as it's going to be around for, I'll post some stuff there. So make sure you go check that out. Shoot me an email at fueledbyweird@gmail.com. We can chat about all sorts of stuff. You can come on the show. You can find the show on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And now you can find me on the Spotlight Media GA app, along with the rest of the Stay Weird Network shows, the Nerdy Manroom show with Hassel and Monster, Hassel's Review, and Big Rob's House of Entertainment, and No Chinese Food. Now, the Stay Weird Network is a brand new podcast network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. You can check us out on YouTube at Stay Weird Network and on Instagram at Stay Weird Network. Also, send us an email at stayweirdnetwork@gmail.com. And I want to thank my sponsor, the Zone Collectibles in Tifton, Georgia. They're your one-stop shop for comics, collectibles, and so much more. Now, if you like the show, please leave a review and tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, life's too short to be normal, so stay weird. Mr. Fish, thanks so much for coming on with me tonight.
Absolutely, man. It is always a pleasure, dude. So much fun.
Absolutely.